The latest Pompey news, updates every day from the Pompey Sound news desk.
After going out to thank the fans after the final whistle against Middlesbrough, John Messino told the press how pleased he was with the passion and professionalism his team showed. He also expressed a quiet pride in the quality of Pompey's start to the season. It's worth remembering that some critics claimed as the season got underway that there had been no improvement in Pompey's playing squad. In fact, there were those who felt the squad was not as strong as they were at the start of Pompey's first season back in the Championship. Hard facts prove Messino's analysis right and the doubters wrong. Pompey currently have 12 points from 9 games, whereas after 9 games last season Pompey had 5 points. In other words, we now have twice as many points and more than we had this stage last season. The 12 points we have on the board took Pompey 9 games, whereas last season, we didn't accumulate 12 points until we played 15 games. And whereas we got to 12 points this season in early October, we didn't get to 12 points last season until the second week in November. A better start to the season, by a better squad, case closed.
Case closed, as the would-be corporate lawyer John Messino might put it, case closed. And in actual fact, it goes further than that because there were those who said, well, we've got an easier start to the season than we had last season. It was our hard start to the season. The fixture list ganged up on us last season. This season, it's a bit of a cakewalk by comparison. Well, it turns out not to be. Okay, because of our 9 games so far, more than half of them have been against not only top half of the table sides, but of those 9 games, 4 have been against clubs who are in serious playoff contention, or indeed playoff positions. There are only 4 clubs that are languishing down amongst the dead men, and that's Southampton, thank goodness, Norwich, who surprisingly sit at 19th, Oxford, I think a lot of people were expecting them to have a difficult season, and Sheffield Wednesday, ditto Sheffield Wednesday. But we have played Ipswich, who a lot of people fancy, and they're on the up, and they are now 9th. We played Watford, who are 11th. We played West Brom, who are currently 7th, and serious playoff contenders. Preston, who've surprised a few people, who are currently lying 4th. We've played them. And of course, on Saturday, I'm going to say, took Middlesbrough to the cleaners. We didn't quite. 1-0 is not taking somebody to the cleaners. But we saw them off, and we saw them off in style, and we matched them in every department, and we beat them in several departments. So is this a better start to the season? Of course. You couldn't possibly argue anything other than that. Is this a better squad that we had going into this season than we had going into the previous season, last season? It's pretty clear, isn't it, just from the numbers alone, never mind about the evidence of your own eyes of what's going on out there on the pitch, that we do. We do.
After Josh Murphy missed Pompey's clash with Middlesbrough, manager John Messino has eased concerns about the winger's injury status. Murphy, who just signed a fresh deal at Fratton Park this week, looks set to return when league action resumes after the international break. The 30-year-old sat out Pompey's impressive 1-0 victory over league leaders Borough, which handed Rob Edwards' side their first loss of the campaign. Despite the medical team's best efforts to get Murphy match-ready, Messino explained they ultimately played it safe with the winger, who's now missed 4 straight games with an ankle problem. But there's good news for Pompey fans. Messino expects the talented wideman, who recently committed his future to the club until 2028, to be back for the Leicester City match on October 18th. Interestingly, Leicester had shown interest in Murphy over the summer. We're almost there with Josh, Messino shared. We pushed him a bit this week, trying to get him fit, but now he's got a couple of weeks to let that ankle properly heal. Hopefully he'll be ready for those 3 games in a week when we return. It's definitely not a long-term issue. Fans probably spotted him around Fratton Park today. He's actually doing really well, and of course getting his signature on that new contract is fantastic news. We're getting close with Josh, and he'll really boost our attacking options when he's back. Messino admitted they might have risked Murphy if it had been a crucial end-of-season fixture, but with plenty of championship football still ahead, they chose to play it safe, especially since they've already had to carefully manage his playing time this season. If it was the last game, yeah, probably, Messino said when asked about potentially risking Murphy. We've had to be careful with a couple of his injuries this year. There was that minor hamstring issue against Oxford where we maybe pushed him, and similar with the ankle when he was almost ready the Friday before. But we need to think long-term and trust our squad depth. Losing a player of his quality is always tough, but we'll be thrilled to have him back.
We are obviously looking forward to the return of Josh Murphy. No question about it, however. There's two things. One, it's a little bit unsettling to see the hyphenated term long-term in connection with his recuperation. It's now starting to be used. We don't know whether it's being dripped into the conversation by Pompey because they want to prepare us for the fact that we might not see him again this year. You don't know. Good Lord, let's hope not, but you don't know. But the second thing that needs to be considered is the simple fact that fitting him back into the team ought to be a piece of cake. But the way our lone player, Yang Min-hyuk, is playing at the moment on the left, it means that there's going to be a selection issue. It's unthinkable that if he's 100% fit, Murphy's going to be on the bench. That is unthinkable. But as Guy Whittingham famously said whilst he was commentating on the Middlesbrough game, he is making a play for that position on the pitch being his own. And Moon asked, what's he got to do to achieve that? And Whittingham replied, and he's right, score a hat-trick. So once he got the first, because that was before the goal, once he got the first, I think Moon said to him, well, 1 down, 2 to go. And there was something in what they were saying. John Messina might have the most excellent selection headache when Murphy comes back and is 100% fit, because you can't keep Yang out of the side, surely. That means somebody's got to make way. Now, Sergičić has already starting on the bench and making a difference when he comes on. But we've also got two players who we assumed would be natural first choice picks for the starting 11 in John Swift, and even more certain, of course, Connor Chaplin. And neither of those two guys have quite played to the very best of their ability so far this season, I would venture to suggest. So it's going to be an interesting selection headache for the boss when he's got all his options to choose from. What would you do?
Connor Chaplin on Saturday's experience.
It's absolute class hearing that Fratton roar again. You don't need to talk too much about how good they are. No one takes it for granted. It's a special occasion when you get to play here, especially as a home player. I know all about that. It's what I wanted to hear again. I'm just loving every second of it. In the dressing room afterwards, the lads were talking about the atmosphere in the last 10 minutes or so. What they create inside the stadium is something else. I thought we deserved the win. It was backs against the wall at times. They are a good team, but I felt we stifled them really well, especially in the first half. We showed what we are as a team. Then, in the second half, we dug in really well as a team. It has taken probably longer than I would have liked in terms of the first win. It's been 4 games, but winning here as a home team is amazing. Middlesbrough made us work hard for it, which makes it even sweeter, and we deserved those 3 points.
Frustrating for the little maestro, that effort that he had, set up by Yang Min-hyuk, by the way, that he sent towards the far post. Whether it was going in or not, I suspect it was. Whether the keeper had it covered or not, I suspect he may have done. It took a deflection and we got a corner from it. But I think for a split second he thought he'd scored. And the talk has been for a week or more now that once Chaplin starts scoring, then we'll see the true Connor Chaplin. Not surprisingly, when asked about the game, he wanted to compliment the fans rather than talk about, well, he would have been happy to talk about the team's performance, of course. When you're taken off the pitch and substituted, there's a sense that you may have been able to do a bit more than you did. And he wouldn't want to be dwelling on that, who would? But he is capable of better, and fans are now clamouring to see him playing to the best of his ability.
Min-hyuk Yang continued his hot streak, netting his second goal in a week to help Pompey hand Middlesbrough their first defeat at Fratton Park. After Jordan Williams set him up midway through the first half, Yang's clinical finish proved enough to send the Blues into the international break with a win. John Messina kept faith with the team that drew against Watford earlier in the week, as Josh Murphy remained sidelined with his ankle problem. The early stages saw Pompey pushing forward but struggling to connect in midfield, while Burrow looked dangerous on the counter without really testing Josip Bursic. Both Aidan Morris and Hayden Hackney sent effort sailing over the bar, the latter taking a deflection on its way. As the half wore on, Pompey found their rhythm and began creating chances. A slick passing move saw John Swift thread through to Mignoc, who cut it back for Connor Chaplin, but his low drive was deflected just wide. The breakthrough came on 23 minutes after a slightly overhit cross from Andre Dozel. Williams recovered the ball and whipped it back into the box, where Mignoc's first-time strike proved too powerful for Sol Bryn. Despite some rough treatment on Colby Bishop going unpunished, Pompey maintained control, though neither side created much before the break. The second half started brightly for the hosts, with Chaplin nearly doubling the lead after cutting inside, his shot whisking just past the post. Burrow responded through Sonche Hansen, but he rushed his effort wide from Matt Targett's cutback. The home crowd found their voice when referee Anthony Backhouse finally gave Pompey a free kick, after several contentious calls had gone against them. Mousinho refreshed his side throughout the second half, bringing on Mark Kushnovsky, Terry Devlin, Adrian Segicic, and Harvey Blair, as the Blues looked to protect their lead. Despite some late pressure from Burrow, including a deflected target effort that went close, Pompey managed the 5 minutes of added time professionally to secure a well-earned victory.
That's a pretty comprehensive and accurate summary of a good game, a game that we can draw, that Pompey fans can draw a lot of comfort from. Because when you go 1-0 up, when teams go 1-0 up, against a team that is supposed to come away with something, and Middlesbrough expected to come away with something and could be expected to come away with something because up until just before the game, they were top of the table and we were on a bad run. Was it 1 point from 4 games? And they naturally thought that, I mean, we weren't there for the taking, but they ought to be able to battle some kind of result. And we're 1 up after, was it 22 minutes? And what that means is that the other side, who were able to bring on multi-million-pound players from the subs bench, that side is going to have a go at you. And that means that you're 1-0 up, you'd like to score a second, but you certainly, most of all, would like to keep a clean sheet. So you know you're going to be doing quite a bit of defending. And to the naive viewer, it would appear that the other side are getting on top and that you're not able to exert yourself. But that's far from the case. The job when you're 1-0 up, especially when you're playing a top side, is to keep that scoreline as it is. And that is what they did. And they did it by sound defending. And I thought it was quite insightful to hear that Terry Devlin said that when he went on, before he went on, the boss, the gaffer, I think he called him, as they still sometimes do, endearingly, told him to put himself about and track the runners. Track the runners. Tracking the runners means basically being defensive-minded. Of course, there's space in front of you and you want to occupy it and go forward. It's human instinct and footballers' instincts. But most of all, Devlin was required. And by the way, the person he replaced, Williams, had a terrific game. And it was no ignominy in him being taken off. But the refreshment that Devlin brought to the game, plus, of course, the renewed resolve to track the runners and keep the score, if possible, at 1-0, which was achieved, was, as was said in that report, thoroughly professional performance.
Middlesbrough boss Rob Edwards on how hard Fratton Park is and how you can end up being drastic.
Almost a 3-1-6, if you like, and just Della and Morgan in the wide areas, 2 strikers, 2 attacking midfield players, and Brownie to sort of defend with that back 3. We tried, we huffed and puffed, but again that final bit wasn't quite there to get the ball over the line. So yeah, disappointing day for us. But the lads' commitment was there. The effort was there. This is a difficult place to come, and it proved that way.
It's a bit of a cop-out sometimes, isn't it, when you hear visiting head coaches, managers. We still prefer the term manager. I guess it depends on what they call themselves, and I think they prefer to call themselves managers anyway. But it's a bit of a cop-out for them always to be able to say that Fratton Park is a difficult place to come. The implication, if they go away empty-handed, being that it wasn't so much the other team or the strategies employed by the home team's backroom staff, it was the ground and the fans in the ground. If you haven't got fans like that, you guys visiting with your teams, if you haven't got fans like that, you should say so. You should say that the Fratton Park fans are better than our fans, more valuable to us than our fans are. I would have thought the Middlesbrough crowd, I don't know for certain, are pretty vocal and pretty passionate. So why are we a hard place to come to? Is it because they've got one of those fancy new stadiums and it doesn't have the same atmosphere that the dear old lady Fratton Park has? But it is a distraction from the fact that we won 1-0 and we deserved to win 1-0. A goal was superbly taken by a superb lone player. He is something, isn't he? That's the second time he's gone and done that. How many first-time strikes have we seen from long balls be converted by Pompey players down the years? It's a particular skill, and he's got it. But he's also quick, and he can turn, and he can be fancy, and he's fast. And the other thing we really like about him is that he's not afraid to get stuck in. He's not afraid to mix it. Now, he was booked, was he? Was he booked for what I thought was a perfectly good tackle? And a free kick given for what I thought was a perfectly good tackle. If you get your hip down on the ground and it's a 50-50 ball and you manage to hook your leading foot around the ball and your opponent runs into it, I didn't actually see any contact between him and the Middlesbrough player, who was bigger than him, because most of the, if not all of the Middlesbrough team were bigger than him. But it was a superb goal and it was really well taken. You don't hear visiting managers talk about the quality of the goal that they conceded. They would have been talking to themselves about shortcomings of their defence, because it's human nature. It's what coaches tend to do, but not ours. Because in post-match interviews, just as in the quality of the team selection, the way the team are set up and motivated, the things he does during the game, the words that he speaks after the game are so measured and so accurate and so interesting compared to the ums and the ahs and the cliches of we huffed and puffed, there was a bit missing. What bit, mate? Please, I'm sure you're a fine young man and a decent individual and no doubt an excellent coach, otherwise you wouldn't be fleetingly top of the championship with your rejuvenated Middlesbrough. So you know what you're doing, but not quite so much when it comes to post-match interviews. Give us John Messino any day.